this tutorial actually comes from a NAP member request. So what happened is that I was surfing the NAP member forums. It's on the NAP member website, and you can only get to them through that member website. And there's a forum in there, if you're not familiar with it already, that is. Now, one of the members, his name is Mikkel Johansson. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And his website is www.inmedia.dk. And he posted this exact graphic here, and he was wondering how to create kind of this background that you see here. And there was a lot of good responses. A lot of them pointed to Illustrator or the pen tool, but there's actually a pretty easy way to do it with just the shape tools right here in Photoshop. So I thought it was a cool graphic. Happened to like the band, so it made it through to a tutorial. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. Let's first work with this background shape, this white little ray of light starburst effect that you see here. And I'm just going to switch to a new image here. And all I did was just create a square image. So it's 500 by 500 pixels. And I sampled the background color from the original. And then I've got a group here that's got some of the elements that we'll finish up with, but we'll get to that as the last step. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm not going to create a new layer because even though I said I was, I'm going to create a new shape layer essentially. So what you do is go over to your shape tool. Remember, we're creating that starburst effect, okay? And then select shape layers, the leftmost option here. Then from your shapes, choose this polygon tool and click on that little arrow right here, and you're going to see some more options in here. And this is where we get that starburst effect. So first choose smooth corners, and then choose star. And then under sides, I'm going to put in 65 for this one. Now watch what happens here. You put your cursor into the center of the image, and let's zoom out a little bit. Put your cursor into the center of the image, hold down the shift key, and just drag out a star. And if you need to reposition it, you can always just hold down that spacebar key. That lets me move it around as you see them doing here. But just drag out a star and just make sure it kind of extends just to the edges of the canvas here. Now my star is black because black was my foreground color, so all you need to do is just fill it with white. Since white's the background color, I can press Control or Command and the backspace key, and that'll just fill it with white. And now you get that starburst effect, and honestly, we're pretty much done. I mean, I could end it here because that was the effect that he was looking for. But we'll take it a little bit further and I'll show you. Let's switch back here. By the way, I'm using Control Tab to switch between open documents. So, and it's Control Tab on the Mac and on the PC. It works for both of them. So you can see it's got these kind of burned in edges that we have here. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. I'll just create a new layer, and I'm going to take my rectangular marquee tool and just draw a square selection that extends out to the edges of the canvas here. Not all the way, just for most of it. Now, if you look back here, you notice that it's just slightly burned in, kind of darker in some areas. See right there? Let's go to the little arrow. You can see it's a little darker there, but it's kind of burned in all the way around. So what I'll do, I'm going to grab my brush tool. I'll get myself about 100 pixel soft edge brush. So you can just choose this 100 pixel brush right here. Set your foreground color to black, and then drop the opacity of the brush down to about 30%. Now, if you're using a Wacom tablet, you could control the opacity with the pressure of the pen on the tablet, and I happen to be using my mouse right now, so I'm just going to drop the opacity down, and on that new layer in the layers palette here, I'm just going to paint across and just kind of burn in those edges a little bit. Try not to go over any areas that you painted over yet. I'll show you that in 1 second. So kind of just burned in some of the edges. Now I'm going to bump the opacity up here, and now come in and just kind of burn in some more of the edges. And you can see I'm almost painting more outside here because I just want to use the very edges of this brush. I don't want to come inside here and do that, okay? I don't want to go inside the selection. So just come in and burn in some of the edges, make them a little bit darker. And notice since we decreased the opacity or increased the opacity for this one, notice the more I paint over an edge, the darker it's going to get. So each time I click and I start painting, I'm going to get a little bit of a darker effect here. And we'll just kind of do a couple more here. We could probably spend a little bit longer on this, but you kind of get the idea. So burn in that one. And let's finish up this one up top here. There we go. So we'll leave it at that. And then I'm going to press Control or Command D to deselect. So we've got our edges. If you need to, you could always adjust the opacity right here. And then the last step really was to just turn on this group, and I don't have obviously the logo that they're using here, so I don't have that. But what I did, so zoom in, is I just downloaded kind of a funky little shape off of iStock, and then I've got some text layer in here too. So I'll show you the font. It's a free font I downloaded off of the internet called 28 Days Later, and it's kind of cool. It's got that grungy look to it. But this is essentially, zoom out a little bit, this is essentially the logo itself. So if you look at the difference here, very, very similar, other than the fact that I don't have their logo. All the other effects are the same. Now there's one little thing missing here I forgot to do. Let's take a look at this one. Go in, grab your zoom tool here, and I'm going to zoom way in. You can see the edges along the white here. Almost looks like it's got a little bit of a stroked edge to it. You can see it right along the white there. It doesn't blend perfectly back into that green. So the only thing that I did here is I came to my shape layer and I added a stroke layer style. And I'm just going to keep it down to 1 pixel. I'm going to change it to black, and then I'm going to drop this opacity way, way, way down, just so it barely shows. Remember, you couldn't really tell when you looked at it, but it was just there, okay? So now, zoom back into 100%. Now we got that nice little stroke on the outer edge of the star right there. So, hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and make sure you stop by the NAP member forums. If you go onto the NAP member homepage, on the bottom right hand side of the screen you'll see a link for the forum. So make sure you go in there, because not only is there a lot of good people that post in there and you can get a lot of your questions answered, but that's where I go a lot of times to find material to do for the tutorials, to see what people want to learn. So make sure you go and visit that. That's it for this tutorial, and I'll see you again next time.